Commander Valric stared at his screen and felt his blood turn cold. For 15 years he had served in the Galactic Empire's Survey Corps. He had seen strange things across 100 worlds, but nothing had prepared him for what he was looking at right now. A human was walking through the forest. That was normal. Humans walked everywhere. They loved exploring and moving around. What made Valrix's 3 hearts beat faster was what walked beside the human, 2 Velcran predator cubs. Velcrans were death on 4 legs. They stood as tall as a human when fully grown. Their jaws could crush metal. Their claws could tear through armor. Adult Velcrans had killed 47 Imperial soldiers in the last 10 years. The Empire had strict rules about them. Stay away, keep distance, never approach their young. Everyone knew that predator cubs were even more dangerous than adults. They were wild, aggressive, and unpredictable. They attacked without warning. Getting near a Velcran cub was considered suicide, yet this human walked calmly through the trees with 2 of them at his sides. Valrix leaned closer to the screen. The human wore a standard patrol uniform. A rifle hung on his shoulder, but his hands were empty and relaxed. The 2 cubs walked with him like trained pets. Their black fur shined in the morning light. They were big, each one nearly as large as the human himself. Zoom in closer, Valrix ordered his technician. The image grew larger. Now Valrix could see details that made the situation even more impossible. The human was smiling. Actually smiling. He looked happy and peaceful, like someone taking a pleasant morning walk. One of the cubs ran ahead, sniffing at something in the bushes. The human made a short sound. The cub immediately returned to his side. "Sir," the technician said, her voice shaking. "The human is controlling them. The predators are obeying his commands." "That cannot be possible," Valrix said, but he could see it with his own eyes. "Velcrans do not obey anyone except their own pack leaders. Should we send a rescue team?" Valrix watched the screen for another moment. The human raised his hand. Both cubs sat down instantly. Their movements were quick and precise, like soldiers responding to their commander. "Get me the human colony administrator," Valrix said. "Right now." Within minutes, a human woman appeared on his communication screen. She looked to be middle-aged with gray streaks in her dark hair. Her name tag identified her as Administrator Helen Price. She smiled at him with the calm expression humans always wore, even in dangerous situations. "Commander Valrix, how can I help you today?" "Administrator, we have an emergency. One of your people is in extreme danger. He is surrounded by 2 Velcran predator cubs. We need to organize a rescue mission immediately before those creatures kill him." Helen looked at her datapad and then back at the screen. Her smile did not change. "Oh, you must be watching Jack Morrison. He is on his regular morning patrol." "There is no emergency, Commander." Valrix felt confused. "Administrator Price, perhaps you do not understand. Those are Velcran cubs. They are lethal predators. They have killed trained soldiers. Your man is walking with them like they are harmless animals." "Well, Commander, to us they kind of are harmless. Jack has been raising Luna and Scout since they were 3 weeks old. Their mother died in a rock slide. Jack found them and took care of them. He fed them with bottles when they were tiny. He trained them and taught them how to behave. They are basically his pets now." "Pets?" Valrix struggled to understand the word. His translator was having trouble with it. "Yes, pets. Domesticated animals. We keep them as companions. We have been doing this on Earth for thousands of years. Dogs, cats, birds, horses. We take wild animals and turn them into friends and helpers. Velcrans are not much different from dogs, really. They are smart and loyal. They learn fast when you treat them right." Valrix looked back at his scanner display. Morrison had stopped near a small stream. The cubs were playing in the water, jumping on each other and splashing around. Morrison sat on a rock and ate something from his supply bag. He looked completely relaxed, like someone having a picnic. "This is insane," Valrix whispered. "Those creatures could turn on him at any moment." "No, Commander, they will not. Jack is their pack leader. They trust him completely. He feeds them, trains them, plays with them. In their minds, he is family. They would protect him, not hurt him. But they are predators. Their instinct is to hunt and kill." Helen's smile grew a bit wider. "Commander, humans are predators too. We hunted for millions of years before we built cities and spaceships. Being a predator does not mean being a monster. It just means you eat meat and have the tools to catch it. The important thing is learning when to use those tools and when not to. Your people are allowing this, training wild predators? Not just allowing it. We are expanding the program. We have 12 Velcrons now, all living and working with humans. They help with security patrols. They find lost people. They are amazing at search and rescue because their noses are so much better than ours. Jack has been teaching other handlers how to work with them. On the screen, one of the cubs climbed out of the water and shook itself dry, spraying water everywhere. Morrison laughed and pushed the cub away playfully. The cub wagged its tail. Valrix realized his mouth was hanging open. He closed it quickly. Administrator Price, the Galactic Empire, has very strict laws about predator species. There are protocols that must be followed, safety measures that exist for good reasons. I understand, Commander, and we respect those laws, but humans have different experiences with predators. We have lived alongside them for our entire history. We learned long ago that understanding works better than fear. Would you like us to send you our files on animal domestication? I think you might find them interesting. I think the High Council will need to review this situation, Valrix said slowly. Of course, we are happy to cooperate with any investigation. Jack will be finishing his patrol in about an hour if you would like to meet him and the cubs in person. In person? Valrix felt alarmed. Yes, Luna and Scout are very friendly. They love meeting new people. Well, once they get to know you, they can be a bit shy at first. After the communication ended, Valrix sat in silence. His technician looked at him nervously. Sir, what should we do? Send a full report to the High Council. Include all video footage. Mark it as urgent. Should we classify it as a threat? Valrix watched his screen again. Morrison was standing now, ready to continue his patrol. He made a gesture with his hand. Both cubs moved to flank him, one on each side. They walked together into the trees, moving as a coordinated unit. I do not know, Valrix admitted. I honestly do not know what to classify this as. The humans are either the bravest species in the galaxy or the most foolish. Possibly both, the technician nodded. What they are doing goes against everything we were taught about predators. Yes, it does. And that is what worries me. Not that they might be wrong, but that we might have been wrong all along. Over the next few days, Valrix could not stop thinking about what he had seen. He reviewed the footage dozens of times. He read through the files that Administrator Price had sent, documents about something humans called dog training and animal behavior. The files were remarkable. Humans had been working with predators for 15,000 years. They had taken wolves, wild and dangerous, and slowly turned them into dogs. Loyal companions who lived in human homes and played with human children. They had done the same with cats, fierce hunters that became gentle house pets. With horses, powerful animals that could kill with a single kick, but instead carried humans on their backs. With hawks and falcons, predators of the sky that hunted for their human partners. The pattern was always the same. Take a young animal, treat it with kindness and consistency. Teach it rules and boundaries. Reward good behavior. Be patient. Over time, the animal learned to trust. It learned that humans were friends, not enemies. It learned that cooperation brought better rewards than aggression. Humans called it domestication. They had built their entire civilization alongside these predator partners. Valrix realized that the Empire had chosen a different path. When the Empire encountered predators, they built walls. They created weapons. They established forbidden zones. The goal was always separation and control through force. Humans chose connection instead. 3 days after his initial report, Valrix received new orders. The High Council wanted a full investigation. They were sending an ambassador to the human colony. Until then, Valrix was to continue monitoring the situation, so he watched. Every day he observed Jack Morrison and his patrol. He saw other humans working with Velcrons now, a woman named Katie Rogers who cared for 3 younger cubs, a man named Paul Martinez who studied their behavior and health. He saw human children visiting the Velcrons under careful watch. He saw the predators being gentle and careful around the small humans, as if they understood these were precious and fragile. He saw what looked impossible becoming normal. And Valrix began to wonder. His species had avoided predators for thousands of years. They had called it wisdom and safety. But maybe it was just fear. Maybe humans had discovered something the Empire had missed. Maybe the most dangerous thing in the galaxy was not the predators themselves, but the missed opportunity of never trying to understand them. As he prepared his detailed reports for the arriving ambassador, Ambassador Corvin stepped off the transport ship and onto the surface of Epsilon Verde. He carried the weight of the entire Vrexian High Council on his shoulders. His mission was clear and simple: investigate these humans and their dangerous activities with predators. Determine if they posed a threat to Imperial safety standards. Report back with recommendations. He expected to find chaos. He expected to find injuries and near-death incidents covered up by reckless humans. He expected to prove that 3,000 years of Imperial wisdom about predators was correct. What he found instead would change everything he believed. Administrator Helen Price met him at the landing pad. She was shorter than most humans, with gray hair pulled back in a simple style. Her handshake was firm and her smile was genuine. "Welcome to Epsilon Verde, Ambassador Corvin. We are honored by your visit." "I am here to investigate your predator program," Corvin said directly. He did not believe in wasting time with pleasantries when safety was at stake. "Of course, we have prepared a full schedule for you. You will have complete access to all our facilities and staff. We have nothing to hide." Helen led him to a vehicle and they drove toward the colony's main settlement. Along the way, Corvin saw human children playing in parks. He saw workers tending to crops. He saw normal colony life, peaceful and organized. Then he saw something that made him grip his safety harness tighter. A human woman jogged past on a trail. 2 Velcrans ran beside her, matching her pace perfectly. They wore harnesses with identification tags. The woman looked relaxed and happy, as if running with predators was the most natural thing in the world. "That is Susan Hayes," Helen explained. "She works in our agricultural division. She runs with her Velcrans every morning. They are training for an endurance competition next month." "A competition? With predators?" "Yes, it builds the bond between handler and animal. Plus, Velcrans need lots of exercise. They are working animals. They get bored and restless without something to do." They arrived at a large facility on the edge of the settlement. A sign near the entrance read Wildlife Integration Center. Helen parked the vehicle and gestured for Corvin to follow her inside. The building was spacious and well lit. Large windows showed outdoor enclosures where various animals moved around. Corvin recognized several predator species from different worlds. All of them were supposed to be too dangerous for close contact. Yet humans moved among them freely. In one enclosure, a young human female sat on the ground. 3 Velcran cubs tumbled over her, playing and wrestling. They were small, maybe 2 months old. Their teeth and claws were already sharp. One grabbed her sleeve and pulled. She laughed and gently redirected the cub toward a rubber toy instead. "That is Katie Rogers," Helen said. "She specializes in early socialization for cubs. The first few months of a Velcran's life are critical. That is when they learn how to interact with the world." A man approached them. He was thin with dark hair and wore a white coat covered in animal fur. His smile was bright and enthusiastic. "Ambassador Corvin, this is Dr. Paul Martinez, our xenobiologist." Paul extended his hand for a shake. "Welcome, Ambassador. I am so glad you are here. We have been documenting everything we do, and I am excited to share our findings with the Empire. I am here to evaluate if what you are doing is safe," Corvin said carefully. "Absolutely understandable. Let me show you around and explain our methods." Paul led him deeper into the facility. They passed rooms with medical equipment, training areas with obstacles and targets, and quiet spaces where animals rested. "The key to working with predators," Paul explained as they walked, "is understanding what they need. Velcrans are pack animals. In the wild, they live in family groups with clear social structures. They follow their pack leaders and cooperate to survive. When we bring them into human society, we become their pack. But you are not Velcrans. You are a different species. True, but pack behavior is not really about species. It is about relationships and trust. A Velcran cub raised by humans sees humans as family. We feed them, keep them safe, teach them the rules. We become their pack leaders." They stopped at an observation window. Inside the room beyond, Lieutenant Jack Morrison worked with Luna and Scout. The 2 Velcrans were much larger now than in the footage Valrix had recorded. They stood chest-high to Morrison, powerful and intimidating. Morrison held up his hand. Both Velcrans sat immediately. He pointed to the ground. Both lay down flat. He made a circular motion with his finger. Both stood and spun in a circle. After each action, Morrison gave them something from his pocket and praised them with words and touch. "What you are seeing is positive reinforcement training," Paul explained. "It is the same method humans have used for thousands of years. When an animal does what you want, you reward it. Food, praise, play, whatever the animal values. The animal learns that cooperation brings good things. Over time, the behaviors become automatic. But what about their predator instincts? Corvin asked. What happens when they see prey? Paul smiled. Good question. Let me show you. He led Corvin to another area where small rabbit-like creatures hopped around in an enclosure. Paul opened a gate and called out. Morrison appeared with Luna and Scout. The moment the Velcrans saw the small animals, their bodies tensed. Their ears pointed forward. Their eyes locked onto the movement. Corvin took a step back, ready to run. Luna, Scout, leave it, Morrison said calmly. Both Velcrans immediately relaxed. They turned their attention away from the prey animals and looked at Morrison instead. See, Paul said, they have prey drive. That is natural and normal, but they also have impulse control. We taught them that not everything that moves is food. We taught them to wait for permission and to follow commands even when their instincts say otherwise. Morrison walked closer to the prey animals with the Velcrans at his side. The small creatures scattered, moving quickly. Luna and Scout watched but did not react. They stayed focused on Morrison. It takes daily practice, Morrison added, joining the conversation. We work on this every single day. Impulse control, focus, obedience. It is like building muscle. The more you practice, the stronger it gets. How long did this take? Corvin asked. I have been working with Luna and Scout for 8 months now, but we started when they were very young. The earlier you start, the easier it is. Their brains are flexible when they are young. They learn fast. Paul gestured for them to follow him to another area. Let me show you the practical applications of our program. They entered a large room that looked like a training facility. Various obstacles were set up, including walls, tunnels, and platforms. A woman worked with a Velcron, guiding it through the course. This is Lisa Campbell, one of our senior handlers. She is training her Velcran for search and rescue operations. Lisa called out a command. The Velcran climbed over a wall, squeezed through a tunnel, and jumped onto a platform. At the end of the course, Lisa rewarded the animal with enthusiastic praise and a treat. Velcrans have an incredible sense of smell, Paul explained, about 1,000 times better than human noses. They can track scents across long distances and difficult terrain. We are training them to find lost people. Has this actually worked? Corvin asked, still skeptical. 3 times in the past month, Morrison answered. Scout found a missing child who wandered away from a school group. Tracked her scent for 8 miles through rough terrain. Found her in 90 minutes. Our regular search teams would have taken days to cover that much ground. Lisa walked over to join them, her Velcran following calmly at her side. We are also training them for medical alert work. Some Velcrans can detect changes in human body chemistry. They can sense when someone is about to have a seizure, or when a diabetic person's blood sugar is getting dangerous. We have 2 Velcrans assigned to our medical facility now. Corvin struggled to process everything he was seeing. But the danger. What happens when something goes wrong? When a Velcran gets aggressive? Lisa and Morrison exchanged glances. Lisa spoke first. Last week, my Velcran bit me during a training session. Corvin felt vindicated. So your system does fail? No, I failed, Lisa corrected. I was having a bad day. I was stressed and impatient. I pushed too hard in training. My Velcran sensed my stress and got anxious. When I ignored his warning signs and kept pushing, he bit my arm to tell me to back off. She rolled up her sleeve to show a bandage. It was a warning bite, not an attack. He did not even break the skin. He was communicating the only way he knew how. I was not listening to his body language, so he had to be more direct. What happened to the animal after this incident? Morrison looked confused by the question. Nothing happened to him. We evaluated what went wrong. Lisa adjusted her approach. They are back to training now. The relationship is actually stronger because Lisa learned to read his signals better. You did not destroy the animal? You did not remove it from the program? Both humans looked shocked at the suggestion. Of course not, Lisa said firmly. That would be like punishing a student for answering a question honestly. My Velcran told me the truth. I was pushing too hard. That is valuable communication. Why would I punish him for being honest? Paul stepped in. Ambassador, I think there is a fundamental difference in how we view these animals. You see them as dangerous things that need. The report that Ambassador Corvin sent to the Vrexian High Council caused chaos. Emergency meetings were called at all hours. Military leaders demanded immediate action. Scientists argued over the data. Politicians took sides and formed alliances. The debate shook the foundations of imperial policy. High Counselor Thrax led the opposition with fierce determination. He was old, traditional, and completely convinced that humans were playing with fire. These humans are reckless and dangerous, Thrax declared during a council session. They ignore 3,000 years of wisdom. They treat lethal predators like toys. When this experiment fails, and it will fail, innocent beings will die. We cannot allow this to continue, but not everyone agreed. Counselor Mira had spent her entire career studying how different species interacted. She had read Corvin's report 3 times. She had watched every video file he sent, and she saw something different from what Thrax saw. Perhaps we are the ones who have been wrong, Mira said during the heated debate. The humans have provided documentation spanning 15,000 years. They have transformed wolves into dogs, wildcats into house pets, wild horses into working partners. They have a proven track record of success. They are predators themselves, Thrax snapped back. Of course they relate to other predators. But we are not predators. We evolved beyond such base instincts. We built civilization by separating ourselves from danger, not embracing it. Did we separate ourselves from danger? Mira challenged. Or did we simply build walls and convince ourselves that fear is the same as wisdom? The argument continued for weeks. Reports came in from different sectors. Military advisors warned of security risks. Medical experts worried about disease transmission. Safety inspectors listed hundreds of potential hazards. But there were other voices too. Agricultural worlds mentioned their ongoing problems with wild predators destroying crops. Security forces talked about the limitations of technology in search and rescue operations. Scientists expressed curiosity about predator intelligence and behavior. Finally, the council reached a compromise. They would send a large delegation to live at the human colony for 3 months. The delegation would include scientists, military observers, cultural specialists, and medical experts. They would watch everything, document everything, and then make a final recommendation. Ambassador Corvin volunteered to lead the delegation. If he was going to judge humanity, he wanted to do it with complete information. The delegation arrived at Epsilon Verde with 12 members from different worlds and professions. Among them was Kelton, a military security officer known for his rigid discipline and skeptical nature. He made his opinion clear from the beginning. I am here to document the inevitable failure, Kelton told Corvin on their first day. Predators cannot be trusted. History proves this. I will wait and watch, and when something goes wrong, we will have the evidence we need to shut this program down. Helen Price welcomed the entire delegation warmly. She had prepared comfortable quarters for everyone and created a detailed schedule of observations. You are free to go anywhere and see anything, Helen told them. We want you to have the complete picture. Ask questions. Challenge our methods. We believe transparency is essential. Over the following days, the delegation watched everything the humans did with their predators. They observed morning training sessions where handlers worked with Velcrans on basic commands. Sit, stay, come down. The commands were simple, but the execution was flawless. The predators responded immediately every time. They watched advanced training where Velcrans learned complex tasks, searching for specific scents, navigating obstacle courses, working in teams to solve problems. They documented socialization sessions where young cubs met new people, new environments, and new situations. The cubs were carefully exposed to different experiences while still young and flexible. They saw veterinary checkups where humans examined predators completely, checking teeth, paws, ears, and bodies. The Velcrans sat calmly through procedures that would have required sedation for wild animals. They watched therapy sessions where traumatized colonists found comfort sitting with trained Velcrans. The predators seemed to sense emotional distress and responded with gentle patience. One scientist in the delegation, a researcher named Crix, became particularly interested in the training methods. He approached Paul Martinez with detailed questions. How do you know what rewards motivate each individual Velcran? Crix asked. Paul smiled at the question. Good observation. Every animal is different. Some are very food motivated. They will do anything for treats. Others care more about play and toys. Some just want praise and attention. We test different rewards and watch what makes each individual excited. Then we use what works best for that specific animal. And if an animal refuses to cooperate, then we ask why. Is the animal sick, scared, confused about what we want, distracted by something else? We never assume the animal is being stubborn or defiant. There is always a reason for behavior. Our job is to figure out what that reason is. Crix took detailed notes. This approach was completely different from how the Empire dealt with animals. Imperial methods focused on control and containment. Human methods focused on understanding and partnership. Kelton remained skeptical despite everything he observed. He attended every training session looking for mistakes. He questioned every handler about incidents and problems. He reviewed medical records searching for injuries. "You are trying very hard to find failure," Morrison commented one day after Kelton's third interrogation. "Someone needs to be realistic about the risks." Kelton replied stiffly. "Come with me tomorrow," Morrison offered. "I have a patrol scheduled in the northern sector. Bring your questions and your concerns. See how this actually works in real conditions." The next morning, Kelton joined Morrison, Luna, and Scout for patrol. They left the settlement before dawn and headed into the wilderness. Corvin decided to come along as well, curious to see how Kelton would react. The patrol covered rough terrain. Rocky hills, dense forest, open grassland. Morrison moved confidently through it all with the two Velcrons ranging ahead and beside him. "They are scouting," Morrison explained, "checking for dangers that I might miss. Animals, unstable ground, anything unusual. They have better senses than I do, so I trust their judgment." Scout suddenly stopped and barked once. Morrison immediately halted and raised his hand. Luna stopped too, perfectly still. "What is it?" Kelton asked nervously, his hand moving toward his weapon. "Not sure yet. Scout found something. Give him a moment to figure it out." Scout moved forward slowly, nose to the ground. He circled an area of tall grass, then sat down and looked at Morrison. "Good boy, Scout. Kelton, there is a snake nest in that grass. Probably venomous based on Scout's caution. He is warning us to go around." They circled the area widely. Kelton stared at the grass as they passed. "How did you know what he was telling you?" "Practice and observation. Scout has different alerts for different things. That particular sit and stare means danger in place, do not approach. If it was a person, he would have barked differently and looked excited. If it was another animal, he would have glanced back and forth between me and the target. Each signal means something specific. You trust your life to a predator's signals? Every single day. And so far, Luna and Scout have never been wrong." They stopped near a stream for a break. Morrison pulled out food and water for himself and both Velcrons. While they ate, Kelton asked more questions. What happens if they see prey? Small animals that trigger their hunting instinct? As if summoned by the question, a group of small rodent-like creatures scurried across the clearing. Both Velcrons' heads snapped toward the movement. Their bodies tensed. Kelton jumped up. "Ready to run." "Luna, Scout, leave it," Morrison said calmly, not even looking up from his food. Both predators relaxed immediately and returned to eating their own meals. The prey animals disappeared into the bushes, completely ignored. "How is that possible?" Kelton asked, genuinely amazed. "They know the rules. Prey animals are off limits unless I specifically give permission. They have been trained on this since they were cubs. The instinct is still there, but they have learned to control it. But instinct is powerful. How do you know it will not override their training someday?" Morrison looked thoughtful. "I do not know for certain. Nothing in life is absolutely guaranteed, but I trust the bond we have built. I trust the thousands of hours of training. And I trust that they see me as their pack leader. In a pack, you follow the leader's rules. That is how pack animals think." They continued the patrol for several more hours. Kelton watched everything closely. He saw how Morrison and the Velcrons communicated constantly through gestures, sounds, and body language. He saw how the predators checked in regularly, making sure Morrison was safe. He saw true partnership in action. By the time they returned to the settlement, Kelton looked different. The rigid certainty in his expression had softened into something more complex. That evening, he approached Corvin in their shared quarters. "I was wrong," Kelton said simply. "I came here expecting to prove humans were foolish and reckless. But they are not. They are brave and knowledgeable. They understand these predators better than we ever tried to. Today, a Velcron saved me from stepping on a venomous snake." The storm arrived without proper warning. Weather satellites had predicted light rain for the northern sector. Instead, a massive system rolled in from the ocean, bringing torrential rain, dangerous winds, and lightning that split the sky. The colony's power systems flickered and died in the northern sector. Emergency lights activated, but communication with the area went dark. Worse news came quickly. A geological survey team was trapped in the canyon system 20 miles from the main settlement. 4 humans were stuck there with rising floodwaters threatening their shelter. Administrator Helen Price called an emergency meeting. The rescue team assembled within minutes. Morrison arrived with Luna and Scout, both wearing their working harnesses with communication devices and tracking equipment. 2 other handlers joined them. Lisa Campbell brought her Velcran named Bolt. A younger handler named Chris Nelson came with his pair, Storm and Thunder. 6 predators total for the rescue operation. Ambassador Corvin stood in the operations center watching the preparations. "I want to come with you," he announced. Morrison looked surprised. "Ambassador, this is going to be dangerous." "The weather is bad and getting worse. The terrain is rough even in good conditions. If your methods truly work, I need to see them under real crisis conditions, not in controlled training. I need to see what happens when everything is going wrong." Helen approved it. Kelton insisted on coming too. Within 30 minutes, the rescue team loaded into atmospheric shuttles and launched toward the northern sector. The flight was terrible. The shuttle shook and rattled as wind slammed against it from all directions. Rain hammered the hull like bullets. Lightning flashed so close that Corvin could smell the ozone. "We cannot land at the planned site," the pilot announced. "Wind is too strong. I can put you down 3 miles away, but that is the best I can do." "Do it," Morrison confirmed. The shuttle touched down hard. The rear door opened and wind immediately howled through the cabin. Rain blew sideways, making it nearly impossible to see more than a few feet. The rescue team rushed out into the storm. Corvin struggled to stand upright against the wind. Kelton grabbed his arm to steady him. Morrison knelt beside Luna and Scout. He pulled out a piece of cloth from his pack, something that belonged to the trapped survey team. Both Velcrans sniffed it carefully, their noses working to memorize the scent despite the rain and wind. "Luna, Scout, find them," Morrison commanded. Both predators disappeared into the darkness. For the next 2 hours, Corvin experienced the longest and most frightening journey of his life. The rescue team followed the tracking signals from the Velcran's harnesses, stumbling through mud and debris. Visibility was almost zero. The rain was so heavy it felt like walking underwater. Twice, Luna circled back to guide them around dangerous areas. Once, Scout barked urgently and the team stopped just before a hidden washout that would have sent them tumbling down a steep slope. "They are protecting us," Corvin realized, shouting to be heard over the storm. "Always," Morrison shouted back. "We are Pack. Pack takes care of Pack." The canyon came into view finally, barely visible through the rain. The shelter where the survey team had taken refuge was partially collapsed. Water was rising fast around it, already knee-deep and climbing higher. "We need to move fast," Lisa yelled. "That shelter will not hold much longer." The rescue team scrambled down the canyon wall. The Velcrans found safer paths, testing the ground before leading their humans forward. When they reached the bottom, water was already waist-deep and moving with dangerous force. Morrison pushed through the current toward the shelter. "Survey team, this is rescue. Can you hear me?" A weak voice answered from inside. "We hear you. 4 people here, 2 injured. We cannot move them easily." The rescue became a desperate race against rising water. The team worked to extract the survivors one at a time. The first 2 came out able to walk with help. The third was a woman with a broken leg, semi-conscious from pain medication. Then came the 4th survivor, a man named Greg Hamilton. He was delirious from a head injury, confused and frightened. When rescuers tried to help him out of the collapsing shelter, he panicked. No, leave me alone," Greg shouted, pushing away from the rescuers. He stumbled away from the rescue team, heading toward the river swollen with floodwater. In his confused state, he did not recognize the danger. "Greg, stop," Chris Nelson yelled, running after him. Greg was faster. He splashed through the rising water, heading straight for the deadly current. Scout reacted instantly. The Velcran surged forward, moving through water that would have knocked a human down. He intercepted Greg, putting himself between the confused man and the river. Greg tried to push past. Scout grabbed Greg's jacket in his powerful jaws and held firm. Corvin watched in horror. This was the moment he had feared. A predator with a panicking human, teeth and claws and instinct. This was where everything would go wrong, but it did not go wrong. Scout planted his feet and held Greg's jacket without aggression. When Greg hit the Velcran trying to break free, Scout did not bite harder or fight back. He simply held on steady and patient, preventing Greg from reaching the dangerous water. Morrison reached them seconds later. "Good boy, Scout, easy now. I have got him. He helped calm Greg while Scout maintained his gentle but unbreakable grip. Lisa arrived to help, and together they guided the confused man back to safety. Scout released the jacket only when Morrison gave the command. He was not attacking, Kelton said in amazement, standing beside Corvin. He was protecting. He knew Greg was Pac. He knew Greg was in danger, so he stopped him the only way he could. With perfect control, Corvin added. Those jaws could have crushed bone. Instead, they held cloth. That is not instinct. That is training and trust. The rescue team got all 4 survivors to safety. The journey back to the shuttles was just as difficult as the journey in. The storm continued to rage. Everyone was exhausted, cold, and covered in mud, but they all made it. All 4 survey team members survived. The rescue was a complete success. Back at the settlement, medical teams took over care of the injured. The rescue team was checked over for injuries and exposure. Miraculously, the only serious wounds were the ones the survey team had gotten before the rescue. Luna and Scout received massive quantities of treats and praise. Scout, who had saved Greg Hamilton's life, was declared a hero. The other Velcrons were similarly celebrated for their work in the dangerous conditions. That night, Corvin sat in his quarters writing his observations. His hands were still shaking slightly from the adrenaline and exhaustion. There was a knock on his door. Greg Hamilton stood there, cleaned up and bandaged, but looking much better than he had in the storm. Ambassador Corvin, I heard you were on the rescue team. I wanted to thank you. I did very little, Corvin said honestly. The humans and their Velcrons did all the real work. I heard about what happened. How Scout stopped me from walking into the river. I do not remember it clearly. I was confused from the head injury, but they told me a Velcron saved my life. He did. I watched it happen. Greg looked emotional. I was afraid of them when I first came to this colony. Velcrons, I mean. I thought they were dangerous. I avoided them. But one grabbed me to protect me even when I was hitting him and fighting. That predator cared more about my safety than I did in that moment. It changed how you see them. It changed everything. I spent my whole life thinking predators were the enemy. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe we all were wrong. Greg paused. I am going to start the handler training program. I want to learn what Morrison and the others know. I want to understand these amazing creatures. After Greg left, Corvin continued writing his report. He documented every detail of the rescue. The planning, the execution, the challenges, and the success. But most importantly, he documented what he had learned. The Velcrons had worked in conditions that would have been impossible for most technology. Their senses found dangers that scanners missed. Their strength moved through terrain that vehicles could not navigate. Their intelligence solved problems in real time, and throughout it all they had protected their human partners without hesitation. This was not just about training animals to follow commands. This was about building genuine partnerships between species, relationships built on trust, communication, and mutual respect. Kelton stopped by later that evening. The military observer looked different now. The rigid skepticism was gone, replaced by something softer and more thoughtful. I have been thinking about what happened today, Kelton said, sitting down heavily. I spent my entire career believing that predators were threats to be eliminated or avoided. That was my training. That was everything the military taught me. And now I think we were only seeing half the picture. Yes, predators are dangerous. They have teeth and claws and hunting instincts. But humans are also dangerous. We have weapons and intelligence and our own capacity for violence. The difference is not whether something is dangerous. The difference is what you choose to do with that danger. Corvin nodded. Humans chose to transform danger into partnership. And we chose to transform danger into fear. I wonder how many other opportunities we have missed because we were too afraid to try something different. They sat together in thoughtful silence. Outside, the storm was finally passing. The rain had stopped and stars were beginning to appear. Ambassador Corvin stood before the full Vrexian High Council with Luna and Scout, sitting calmly at his sides. The massive chamber was filled with representatives from hundreds of worlds. Every seat was occupied. The gallery was packed with observers. This moment would shape imperial policy for generations to come. The chamber buzzed with nervous conversation. Many council members had never seen a predator this close. Some shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others stared with open curiosity at the 2 Velcrons who sat so peacefully in a place designed for civilized discourse. Corvin began his presentation. For 3,000 years, this empire has maintained strict separation from predator species. We built walls and weapons. We created forbidden zones. We called this approach wisdom and safety. Today I stand before you to say that we were wrong. The chamber erupted. Voices shouted in protest and support. High Counselor Thrax rose to his feet demanding order. Ambassador Corvin, you make a bold claim. Can you support it? I can, Counselor. I have spent 3 months living among humans, observing their predator integration program in detail. I have seen training sessions, medical procedures, search and rescue operations, and emergency responses. I have documented everything. Corvin activated the display screens around the chamber. Video footage began playing. Luna and Scout responding to commands. Katie Rogers socializing young cubs. The rescue operation in the storm. Scout saving Greg Hamilton's life. What you are seeing is not magic or luck. It is the result of 15,000 years of accumulated knowledge about animal behavior. Humans did not discover how to control predators. They discovered how to communicate with them, to understand them, to build genuine partnerships. He gestured to Luna and Scout. These two Velcrons have completed over 500 hours of public interaction. They have met thousands of different individuals. They have been in crowds, storms, emergencies, and peaceful daily routines. They have never displayed unprovoked aggression. One trained example proves nothing, Thrax argued. The exception does not make the rule. You are correct, Counselor. So let me give you more data. New images filled the screens. Dozens of Velcrons working with humans. Statistical analysis of interaction safety. Medical records showing minimal incidents. Success rates for search and rescue operations. The human colony has integrated 12 Velcrons so far. Together, they have logged over 3,000 hours of active service. They have found 27 lost individuals. They have detected 5 medical emergencies before symptoms became critical. They have prevented 8 security breaches. And in all this time, there have been 0 attacks on humans. Counselor Mira spoke up. What about incidents? Surely there have been problems. Yes, there have been incidents. 17 training situations where a Velcron nipped or scratched a handler. In every single case, investigation showed that the human made an error. Pushed too hard, ignored warning signals, brought stress or anger to the interaction. The animals were communicating boundaries. When handlers adjusted their approach, the problems resolved. So you admit the danger exists, Thrax said quickly. All relationships have risks, Counselor. Humans risk injury from their machines, their vehicles, their weather. They manage these risks through understanding and safety protocols. They do the same with predators. Corvin paused and looked around the chamber. The real question before this council is not whether predators are dangerous. We all know they are. The question is whether danger must equal separation, or whether we have the courage to try understanding instead. He touched a control, and new data appeared. Agricultural reports from farming worlds showing massive crop losses to wild predators. Security assessments discussing the limitations of technology in search and rescue. Medical studies about the psychological benefits of animal companionship. We have problems across the empire that predator partnerships could help solve, but we never tried because we were afraid. Humans were not afraid, or rather they acknowledged their fear and did it anyway. That is real courage. Morrison had accompanied Corvin to the council session. He stood now and spoke clearly. Members of the council, I understand your hesitation. When I first found Luna and Scout as orphan cubs, I was afraid too. These were wild predators that could have killed me, but I also saw something else. I saw intelligence in their eyes. I saw the potential for something amazing if I was willing to put in the work. He placed his hand on Luna's head. She leaned into his touch. It took thousands of hours of training, daily practice, patience when things went wrong, learning to read their body language and communicate in ways they understood. It was not easy, but nothing worthwhile ever is. What happens when they get old? Someone called from the gallery. When their training fades or they become aggressive. Velcrons live about 15 years in captivity, Morrison answered. Luna and Scout are still young, but we have plans for their retirement. They will move to a sanctuary environment where they can live peacefully with other retired working animals. We take care of our partners for their entire lives, not just when they are useful to us. The debate continued for hours. Scientists questioned the training methods. Medical experts worried about disease transmission. Military advisors discussed security implications, but slowly opinion began to shift. A representative from an agricultural world stood. We lose millions in crops every year to predator raids. We have tried everything. Barriers, deterrents, hunting programs. Nothing works long-term because new predators always move into the territory. What if we tried working with them instead? Training them to leave crops alone in exchange for regular feeding and care? A search and rescue coordinator spoke next. We lost 3 people last month in a mountainous region. Our sensors could not penetrate the terrain. Our teams took days to cover the search area. If we had predators with enhanced senses, we might have saved those lives. A medical director added her voice. I have read studies about animal-assisted therapy from Earth. The psychological benefits are remarkable. We have trauma patients who might heal faster with this kind of support. One by one, practical applications emerged. The theoretical debate gave way to concrete possibilities. High Counselor Thrax remained opposed, but his support was crumbling. Even among his faction, voices of doubt appeared. Finally, Counselor Mira called for a vote. The proposal before us is simple. We authorize a pilot program to study human-predator integration methods. The program will be voluntary, carefully monitored, and transparent. Humans will work with our scientists to develop species-appropriate training protocols. We will start small and expand only if results are positive. All in favor? The vote was close but decisive. The pilot program was approved. Corvin felt relief wash over him. Beside him, Luna and Scout remained calm and patient throughout the entire session. They had been perfect ambassadors for their species. Over the following months, work began on the first Imperial training facility. The location chosen was Vexor Prime, a world with moderate climate and diverse terrain. Humans like Morrison were hired as chief advisors. Imperial scientists began studying Earth's domestication programs in detail. The first predators brought into the program were not Velcrons. They started with a smaller, less intimidating species from a nearby world. Fox-like creatures that were intelligent but manageable. The goal was to build confidence and experience before moving to larger predators. Ambassador Corvin visited the facility regularly. He watched as Imperial citizens, many of them nervous and uncertain, began working with predators for the first time in their lives. A young Vrexian child approached a small predator cub during a socialization session. The child was shaking, clearly terrified. The human trainer, a woman named Rachel Cook, knelt beside the child. It is okay to be scared. Fear is natural when we meet something new and different. But watch. Rachel slowly extended her hand toward the cub. The small predator sniffed her hand carefully, then pushed its head against her palm, seeking attention. See? He is just a baby. He wants to play and be petted like any young creature. Want to try? The child reached out with a trembling hand. The cub sniffed the small fingers, then licked them gently. The child gasped, then smiled. He likes you, Rachel said warmly. Corvin watched this moment and felt something shift in his understanding. This was not just about training predators. It was about healing old wounds, breaking down barriers that had existed for thousands of years, building a new kind of galaxy where different species connected instead of hiding from each other. Morrison found him on the observation deck later that day. Luna and Scout were with him as always. The 2 Velcrons had become celebrities across the Empire. Children knew their names. Adults told stories about them. They represented possibility. It is bigger than I imagined, Morrison said, looking out over the training facility. When we started with 2 orphaned cubs, I just wanted to give them a good life. I never thought it would lead to this. You showed us a different path, Corvin replied. The Empire has existed for thousands of years, but we were stuck in old patterns, afraid to change. You proved that change was possible. It will take time. Years, maybe generations. Changing minds is harder than training animals. But it is happening. Look down there. In the training yard below, a Vrexian handler worked with a young